We're starting the discussion at this moment. We started the discussion lightly, but this time we're starting fully, and it's on development. I mean, community development. The community level in Nigeria includes building and improving schools, providing access to clean and potable water and sanitation facilities, constructing roads and bridges for better connectivity, implementing renewable energy projects, and offering vocational training programs and facilitating adult education initiatives. And not forgetting power, because of course in the community level we need power as well. I was going to mention power. So also the federal government recently have been making some moves, and they said that they have recruited about 2,497 doctors, midwives, nurses, and community health extension workers in the last 6 months to bridge the manpower gap in the health sector due to the emigration of health workers. So the minister said that the federal government will release about 50 billion naira as the first tranche of the basic healthcare provision fund, and the fund is geared towards improving access to primary healthcare. Now this morning on the show we'll be talking about community development and anything that has to do with development in the grassroots level. So joining us this morning we have Opeyemi, who is a development practitioner, and we also have Dr. Suleiman, a strategic communication expert. Okay, gentlemen, if you can listen, Suleiman will be joining us via Zoom, and we have Opeyemi here in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Ismail. So, quite a number of issues, of course, but firstly, can you just help us establish sort of a relationship between what we know today with the existing situation and what might be applicable at the community level? I think we should start the conversation with that.
Yeah, thank you very much. So to start with, community development is actually a very, very sensitive issue that we need to discuss critically in this country, because when we're talking about community, we are talking about participation of people at that level, at what their needs are and how to achieve those kind of needs at that level. But if you look at the government that is mandated to take care of that particular relationship between the people and the government at the level, it's actually, so to say, it's redundant at the moment. Look at our local government system in the country. Personally, I can say for a fact that over 50% of our local government administration are acting on the interim level. Some of them are not elected officials. A government will just sit and say, oh, I want to appoint the son of my crony, the son of one of my allies to man this local government. And that's not the way it's been done. You can also look at what happened from the first statement that the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu made at his inauguration ceremony when he removed fuel subsidy. And since then, the income that Nigeria has been getting from the removal of fuel subsidy has actually increased. If you look at what they shared as FAC every month, it's actually triple or even over 10%, over 10 foods of what they used to get. But what's the impact of those kind of money to the local government level? Because if you look at every month, they said, oh, government, they share so amount of money to the local government level. But if you go to the local government level, they don't even get 10% of what is being sent to them from the federal level. So what impact do we want to achieve from that? And who feel some of the impact of some of the policies and programs of the government? It's people at the grassroots level. There is no power supply, there is no good health care facilities, there is no good education system. How do you want people, how do you want the future, us to grow the future of the country, to have a bright future for the young generation that are growing at that level? You can't compete. Some people at the local government level, at the rural level, can compete with their contemporaries at the urban centers because they don't have access to the same services.
So I know that no matter how sophisticated or educated one is, you come from a community.
Exactly.
And development is key. Now, if you take a look at the structure of governance in the community level, we have, councillors, we have local government chairman, and we also have the traditional rulers, of course, which actually, liaise with the people in government to make life easier for people in the community. Now, give us a sense of how we have fared so far. Coming from the 1960, the early 70s and 80, where the call for community development was amplified. And now that we are in the 2024, tell us how we have fared. And do we see a light at the end of the tunnel where, the community or people living in the community do not have to come to the urban centers just to make life easy for them?
Okay, to go by that, I can remember between 1999 to 2007, from my own community, from the community where I come from, I can see local government administration doing projects, constructing roads, building schools, providing infrastructures that impact on the lives of the people at that level. But from 2011 down to this period, whenever I go home, the road that were constructed with that period are being dilapidated now. You can't even pass them with your vehicles again. Sometimes you have to even use bike to pass some of these.
What do you think is responsible for that?
So what is responsible for that is how our government at the level, at the subnational, I mean, when we talk about governors now, have actually pocketed the local government administration now. Because there is no power, except we are deceiving ourselves, there is little or nothing you can do without finance. And when you have, you say you have a consolidated revenue where the money that is being paid from the federal government is paid into a pocket that the government of the state have control over, you barely don't, as a sitting chairman or councillors of local government, you don't actually have a say. You can pick, you can say I want to do a project and this is what I need to do this project and just do it. It's not possible. And again, as somebody that worked with communities, we did a project last year, where in collaboration with NITS, National Institute for Legislative and Development Studies, where we got some little fund from some of our donor agencies to train councillors of Gwagwalada Area Council. Let me give you but you will be amazed with what you hear councillors saying, that they don't even know that they can make laws. I mean, bylaws that we know.
Where do you think all of these problems are coming from?
Issue of capacity is there. Capacity of people that we are electing at that level is number one. Number two is also the active citizenship at that level. People are not even aware of what government should be doing at the level of at the local government level. They are not even aware of what the responsibility of a citizen at that level is also supposed to be. So first and foremost, we need to see how we can promote and build what they call active citizenship at that level, because it's only if we achieve that citizens can stand up and say they want to make their government accountable to them.
So citizens need to be active. Yes. But then again, you alluded to something earlier, and that is cronyism. The fact that some of these governors end up maybe appointing or selecting some of their cronies to head these local government, areas as it is. So if they would appoint local government chairman, interim or acting local government chairman, it means the case might not be different for councillors, which means that one might not necessarily need to expect the best when it comes to some of these representatives at the local or the grassroots levels in terms of councillors and local government chairmen. So I guess, where do the citizens now start from if they should become active participants in the activities of their local communities? How do they, kickstart this drive of changing the way the old narrative and demanding for what's right, demanding for what's theirs, and also demanding that their representatives are those who are indeed capable of representing them? Okay.
Let me draw your attention to something that happened recently between the federal government and ASU. And when we're talking about communities, we're not talking about just people at the community level. We have community of people, community of professionals that have different interests that they push forward to the government to say, we need you to do this. When this government came into power, they are talking about IPPI, putting the ASU on IPPIS. They stood and said they are not going to agree to that. And eventually the government said, no, let's allow you to do what you want to do. That's what active citizenship gives to you. So at the level of the local government, irrespective of how powerful a governor is, or a president is, or even a local government chairman is, if you have active citizens, you make them do what you want them to do, actually. Because we are talking about democracy. This is a game of number. And if you have this, if you are conscious, you have this awareness of what is happening around you, what is expected of the person sitting on that seat, and you know the power that you hold as a citizen to say, we put you there, you need to be accountable to us. A lot of things can actually change. And when we want to change some of these things, like I mentioned earlier, the media have a lot of role to play. Civil society organization, people working at that level of community have a lot of role to play. We've actually been doing a lot of projects. A lot is happening at the community level. We also need the media to also help spotlight some of those things. If you go to, there is virtually no state in this country that you go that you won't see one NGO, one civil society organization doing one thing or the other to achieve this issue that we're discussing on the table today.
Okay.
So,
So we'll definitely come back to you, but it seems our guest,
Mukhtar
Suleiman, is ready for us now. Good morning to you, and thank you for joining us again.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so we've been having a discussion. I don't know if you're following, but of course, community development is our topic of discussion on the show for today. So give us a sense of how we're fared so far, in developing communities in Nigeria.
I think it is something that we've actually done significantly well in the country. If you look at as far back as 1999 and how far we've come, of course, it's a painful and long and tortuous process. This is not as fast as we would want it to be, but we're getting there gradually, I hope, and I think. Like the fine gentleman in the studio actually said earlier, we can get there even faster if we try as much as possible to demystify some of the concepts of how powers are being shared among the different tiers of government, different levels of government in the country. So that is something that we actually definitely need to look into doing as a country on one hand. Another thing that has actually worked against us in terms of ensuring grassroots development and community development is it is difficult for democracies to thrive in a setting where the citizens themselves are politically illiterate. So we need to do a lot of work into political literacy for us to ensure that people know their rights and have their rights. Because it's one thing to know your rights, another thing to have it. But because institutions and systems and structures of government that ensures that democracy can stand independent of political nuances are actually strengthened by the collective voices of the people who ensure that democracy engine is moving. So if we don't do much to ensure political literacy, we're always going to be doing all motion, no movement. So it's not really a top-down approach as much as we want, because politics in Nigeria is buying and selling, probably anywhere in the world. So if the people refuse to buy what the politicians are selling, then they will have to sell to us what we want to buy. So we have to find a way to ensure that we angle out the conversation toward that narrative, see how people can become more politically literate. Because now you get to see the government is it's hard more careful with budgetary allocations and all of that. Because now, due to the work of civil society organizations, you get to see now that we are demystifying budgets, we are making them an interesting format for people to look at, we are making comments on budget. Now, people now know what goes into the budget. People did not even know about FAC allocation in the first place, but because of the work of civil society and media, of course, we've been able to see how we can actually bring those kind of information to the people, and we're working toward ensuring how those efforts can actually be expanded as well.
Okay, Mukhtar, thank you so much for joining us once again. So two things, you've spoken about political buying and selling, and in the same breath, you also talked about knowing your right and having your rights. But then again, we've seen in the past couple of months, or do I say years, members of local communities leaving these communities to other areas that they feel to be safer than their communities. Now, I need you to speak to some of these issues and the reason why it has gotten this bad, especially because security agencies would, of course, rely on information from members of these communities, in order to keep them safe and protected. Do you think that there has been a change in the norms or the dynamics of community relations, and dare I say community engagement as well, which is leading to some of what we are seeing today?
Like I've always said, the first law of nature is actually self-preservance. People want to make sure that they are alive. If you're alive, you fight for good governance. So if you feel like where you're staying is not safe and secure for you, then it becomes very difficult for you to say you want to actually think of anything else. So because of that, people would always migrate. Migration is actually a normal thing, but the reasons why people migrate differ from place to place. In the situation of Nigeria, why people are living in rural areas to urban settings currently is largely because of the insecurity that are prevalent in the rural areas. And we need to actually see how the government can do something around fixing that. But then again, I've always said this, and I've said this in Trust TV and other sister stations, it is good policies and good politics that makes good governance. If the government is trying really hard to see how they can use policy-wise and technical ways to see how they can sort this out without actually finding the political angle from all of these things, then it becomes very difficult for us to actually solve this problem. One of the first primary responsibility of government, according to the Nigerian Constitution, is to protect the lives and properties of the Nigerian citizen. And I think for the past almost 10, 15 years now, the government has fallen significantly short in ensuring that they can actually carry out that mandate, which is part of why we actually go to vote for them. We cannot keep using security as a voting tagline. We need to move beyond it and move to other areas of development. So I think the government has fallen really significantly short, and more needs to be done. As to why the reasons why the government has failed is a bit ambiguous. It's difficult for me to actually say because I'm not a security expert. I'm not in that space. But I also know that even if the government is getting the policy angle of it right, they need to get the politics angle of it, because these things do not exist in abstract. They don't exist in silos. They are human beings, state-specific actors or non-state-specific actors who are either benefiting or who are either doing one or two things regarding this insecurity, who are benefiting one or two things from this insecurity. And the government needs to find who those people are, because that's where the political angle comes in, and find a way to actually curb them and nip them in the bud.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
Thank you very much. Let's get back to the studio now.
You did talk about, citizens standing up for their rights and being active in whatever happens in their community. Now, there's a nexus between, this is who we want to govern us or who we want to lead a community, and then what the law wants us to have at the end of the day. In the last election or the elections before, we've seen how, the law has been able to produce a candidate, in quotes, the kind of candidate that people do not want. And if you look at the political scene, let's say there's love lost between state governors and also local government chairmen, and it all spring off for the finance. And of course, without finance, we cannot do a lot. Tell us how this is affecting community development and what can we do to solve the problems as citizens.
So this attitude of our politicians, this attitude of winners take it all, is one thing that if we are able to address in Nigeria, we might be able to also address all this repercussive effect that comes with the gaps that we have in our democracy as we have today. When President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came to power, what somebody like me, that a student of politics like me, expected him to have done is to constitute a government of national unity, where you bring everybody from the opposition that you think have something. Because during manifestos, a lot of people have great ideas contested for these elections. You tap into some of these ideas, bring them together, and form a kind of formidable government that even as an opposition, that is sitting behind it. When you see somebody that you voted for and they eventually emerge, working with this present government, you feel comfortable to also say, okay, let's see what they have to offer, because at the end of the day, they are all coming to the table to govern beyond politics, you get. So if we start imbibing that culture of let everybody work together, let politics be politics and governance be governance. I mean, I'm not limiting this to the ruling party alone, even the opposition. When you see government that have emerged, calling on opposition to come and work with them, and they're still like, no, I can't work with this person. But if you have an idea that you wanted to implement to better the life of Nigerians, why can't you just put those on the table and see how you can work with this piece? It happens in other places. Why don't we see how we can do that, adopt that in this country too? Yes, I know people will be aggrieved that, maybe the system has failed us, but you cannot actually correct the anomalies from the outside. You need to be within the system to try and correct some of those things too. That's actually my.
So are you saying that the young people in the society should, join a political party, come in, make the changes?
You're not too young to run.
It's actually already happening.
Okay.
It's already happening.
Right.
Young people have started doing one or two things. Everybody cannot be in political parties, but everybody must be politically conscious, you get. So, but I have friends now that they are members of political parties, they are doing great in their different political parties, and anytime I see them doing stuff, they even seek your opinion before they ask. This is what we want to do, how do we go about it? And some of those things help too.
Okay, so because of time, Mukhtar, if you can hear me, so there's no gainsaying that our communal life as we know it is being desecrated as it is. Quite a lot of challenges. It's the hardship. Maria spoke about power outages in local communities. There's also insecurity. There's quite a number of things, especially with most Nigerians emigrating for various reasons out of these rural communities to urban centers in search of better and greener pastures. But then again, What solutions do you think the government and members of these communities should explore to ensure a return in the lifestyles as we know it? Smallholder farmers, of course, are the largest chunk or percentage of farmers who feed Nigeria. But unfortunately, smallholder farmers cannot farm if the local communities are not safe for them to do farming. SMEs and small businesses thrive in local communities. That is literally their haven, and we are seeing them being eroded as it is because of some of these issues. So, what are some of these advices that you could give to the government, to the people as solutions to see us return to the way it used to be for the betterment of our bellies, of course, because there's hunger in the land?
We are a state, we are a country, we are not a hamlet or a small hub. We're not an organization. I don't think that a small group of people can hold a country, the whole country to ransom. If the government needs to do what they need to do, which I think that they have the power to do, then it's something that they can actually do to ensure that there's safety and security for all of us in the land. Maybe not the best to quote, but Abacha once said that if security should linger more than 24 hours, then there's something wrong with the state government. So I think that's a best place to start, because these governors understand the nooks and crannies. They campaign and they canvas around it. They have mandates all around these regions. So they should actually be able to see how they can actually curb these things. I guarantee you, in my area where I live, if somebody should say they were robbed today, those of us who are like stakeholders in this area, we know who to go and question, and we'll get the armed robbers who got this, who did this, that carried out that particular trade. So I think for the government, where intelligence is embedded in intelligence and everything is working, I think Nigeria is not incompetent. It's just sad that we are just a bit nonchalant about these issues. So I think the government needs to pick up its steps, leverage on the resources that we already have as a country, and see how these people can actually push back so that the safety, life and security of people can actually be protected. Because now food security is actually a problem.
All right, Mukhtar Suleiman, strategic communications expert, thank you so much for your perspectives on the issue today, community development and its impact, of course, on everyday life. And Mr. Ismail Opeyemi, a development practitioner, I really appreciate your submissions. Exactly. And I know specifically that Media had a good time asking you good questions, because I enjoyed it as well.
There was time we would have, drilled him more, because he's going into terrains that, need a lot of explanation, and I'm sure Nigerians too need explanations on that.
So, gentlemen, we look forward to having you some other time, of course, to continue the discussion on community development, community engagement, and how we can see us return to those real golden times when our communities indeed were golden. But then again, that's the much we can take on the discussion this morning. We'll be going